everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the Linglobe channel. This time, we'll be bringing you content about preserving the world's languages for the future. Please enjoy it to the end.
Imagine trying to tell a stranger exactly who you are, the specific history of your family and the foundational beliefs of your community, all without speaking a single word.
Right, or without handing over some kind of government ID.
Exactly. But in the Guatemalan Highlands, you do it just by, getting dressed in the morning. Linglobe voiceovers.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because, we tend to view ancient history as this static museum exhibit, right?
Oh, totally. We just assume the people who built those ancient structures are firmly stuck in the past tense, like they're trapped behind a velvet rope.
Yeah, and it's a super common misconception. We separate the world into the modern era and the ancient era, just assuming they can't possibly occupy the same space.
But today, we're basically shattering that illusion. We're looking at a community that actively engineers its ancestral culture to not just survive, but really thrive in a hyper-connected world.
Yeah, they are thriving.
And Linglobe, we are exploring this absolutely incredible presentation titled The Kaqchikel Tapestry, Language, Culture, and Identity in the Guatemalan Highlands.
It's such a great overview.
It really is. Our goal today is to systematically walk you through this material, literally slide by slide, to uncover the precise mechanics of how the Kaqchikel people maintain this fiercely vibrant identity today.
And, mechanics is honestly the perfect word for it. We're going to look at the structural engineering behind their language, their agriculture, and even their community play.
Because cultural survival at this level, it isn't an accident. It requires deliberate daily practice.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right into that structure. In slide 1, we are greeted with the title. But the visual background isn't just, some flat color. It's this beautiful macroscopic photograph of a heavily beaded tapestry.
Yeah, the detail is incredible. You see these really complex geometric patterns formed out of deep blues, greens, yellows, and purples.
Right. And it immediately establishes our baseline metaphor for the discussion. This culture is not a solid, immovable monolith. It's composed of thousands of individual threads, each holding specific structural weight.
Which perfectly contextualizes their history, actually. Because moving to slide 2, titled Living Threads, we get the historical timeline.
Yeah, and they have deep roots.
Very deep. The Kaqchikel are direct descendants of a post-classic Maya kingdom that operated between 1200 and 1524 AD. And today, they're one of 21 officially recognized Maya groups within Guatemala.
Wow, 21 groups. And slide 2 categorizes their ongoing survival into 3 pillars, right? Heritage, voice, and spirit.
Exactly. So heritage covers their historical trajectory, from early resistance against Spanish colonization all the way to modern survival. Voice focuses on the preservation of their Quechua language.
And then spirit encompasses their agricultural roots and those vibrant festivals. But, looking at a foundation established back in 1200 AD, I keep wondering how a society keeps ancient frameworks relevant.
Right. It seems impossible.
Yeah. It feels a bit like trying to run a modern cloud-based operating system on 800-year-old hardware.
That is a really great analogy, but we actually have to flip it.
Oh, how so?
Well, they aren't forcing modern software onto fragile vintage hardware. They treat their ancestral foundation more like open source code.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, they constantly patch, update, and adapt the core framework to process modern data. So the foundation isn't a relic, it's a highly adaptable operating system.
That makes so much sense. So let's figure out where this operating system is physically located. In slide 3, we see a beaded topographical map of the Central Highlands.
Yeah, and the core geographic regions there are Solola and Chimaltenango.
Right, with Lake Atitlan sitting right at the epicenter. And the presentation points out that this area is actually highly accessible. It's just a few hours' drive from Guatemala City's international airport.
Which is key because it's not some isolated, walled-off fortress. It is deeply connected to the rest of the world.
Right, but doesn't that connectivity create a profound challenge? Oh, absolutely. Think about it. If you're a distinct cultural group operating within a larger modern nation state and you're surrounded by, global tourism and commerce, how do you project your specific sovereignty?
Because, I mean, you don't have a Kaqchikel national flag flying at the United Nations.
Exactly.
Which brings us to this brilliant solution. Moving to slide 4, we tackle visual sovereignty.
No.
The presentation details 3 alternative visual systems they use instead of a traditional flag.
Yeah, first you have the myoglyphs, which encode their incredibly complex calendrical systems. Then the cosmology symbols that kind of act as regional banners.
Right. But the third system is the one that really blew my mind. Textile patterns. Slide 4 explains that traditional weavings utilize specific symbolic colors and geometric arrangements to broadcast a person's exact community origin.
It's essentially a wearable passport.
Yes, a wearable passport. I love that. It's this amazing decentralized identification system. Your garments instantly communicate your geography, your lineage, and even your social standing to anyone within the community who knows how to read the visual syntax.
Okay, I understand the concept of clothes as an identifier, but I gotta push back here a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
In a modern global market, I mean, anyone can buy a loom or mass produce a geometric pattern, right? Doesn't a visual passport completely lose its power if outsiders can just counterfeit the weaving?
That's the genius of the system, actually. It is practically impossible to counterfeit accurately.
Wait, really? Why?
Because we aren't just talking about a printed logo on a t-shirt, we're talking about the syntax of the weave itself. These patterns contain incredibly subtle, hyperlocal variations.
Oh.
It is almost like a regional phonetic dialect, but executed in thread. A machine-made replica, or an outsider copying a pattern, completely misses the complex grammatical nuances of the weaving technique.
Oh, wow. So they can tell if it's fake.
Instantly. A local from Solo can look at a huipil, which is a traditional garment, and know immediately if it was authentically woven by someone from their specific village. They look at the tension, the thread choice, the micro patterns embedded within the larger design.
That is wild. It's a highly secure, closed-loop identification system.
Exactly.
That completely changes my perspective. It's literally an encrypted language made of thread. And speaking of foundational systems, in slide 5, we look at their cultural pillars.
Right, and the visual here is stunning. It shows a braided wreath holding an ear of maize, a traditional festival firework, and a dual-faced spiritual emblem.
Yeah, and the text on slide 5 makes it explicitly clear that maize is not simply a caloric staple or like a cash crop. It is the sacred foundation of their existence.
Yeah, from a Western economic perspective, corn is just a commodity. But from the Kaqchikel cosmological perspective, the creator gods literally formed the first humans out of maize dough. It represents their physical and spiritual DNA. You simply cannot separate the agricultural practice of growing maize from the spiritual practice of being Kaqchikel.
Which perfectly explains that dual-faced emblem representing spiritual syncretism on this slide. The presentation notes they seamlessly blend ancestral Maya beliefs with introduced Catholicism.
Yes, the blending is key here.
I always struggle with the term syncretism, though. It often sounds like a polite, academic way of saying that one religion forcibly conquered another, leaving only a few native remnants behind. Is it actually a seamless blend?
This is a vital distinction to make, honestly. This was not passive assimilation. It was active architectural integration.
Active integration, what does that look like?
Well, when Spanish colonization aggressively introduced Catholicism, the Kaqchikel didn't just, passively surrender their cosmology. They strategically mapped Catholic figures and saints directly onto their existing agricultural and celestial cycles.
Oh, that's incredibly smart.
Right. You see this vividly in major community celebrations highlighted on the slide, like Rabbi Najah and the Day of the Dead. They are ostensibly honoring Catholic calendars, but the core mechanics of the celebrations, the offerings, the specific timing, the intimate relationship to the maize harvest are deeply functionally Maya.
It's a merged operating system that allowed their ancestral beliefs to survive right in plain sight.
Exactly, like hiding your most critical data inside a completely different software program so it doesn't get deleted.
I love that analogy. Okay, but beliefs are internal. How do you protect a spoken language? Moving to slide 6, we trace the voice.
The visual here is a massive braided cord splitting into different historical strands.
Yeah, it traces the ancestral roots of the language, branching from classical Maya thousands of years ago, all the way down into the modern Quiché Mamin branch spoken in the Highlands today.
And ensuring that voice survived the transition from an ancient oral tradition into a modern written form that required incredible linguistic agility.
Let's look at exactly how they did that. In slide 7, the evolution of the script, we see a timeline represented by knotted chords. It starts with the ancient Maya logographic systems, those famous pictorial glyphs carved into stone.
Right, beautiful but incredibly complex.
Yeah. Then, the timeline hits this massive, chaotic knot representing the colonial period, where Spanish rule actively suppressed indigenous writing.
It was a very dark period for their linguistic history.
But yet, on the far side of that knot, we see the modern script, which uses the Latin alphabet but is highly adapted for unique Kaqchikel sounds.
The linguistic bottleneck they survived there is just staggering. I mean, the colonizers forced a European phonetic framework onto a language that fundamentally did not operate with European sounds.
Right, the sounds don't even match up.
Exactly. So to survive that, the Kaqchikel had to essentially reverse engineer the Latin alphabet. They hacked the Spanish alphabet, modifying it to accommodate a Mayan vocabulary that it was just never designed to hold.
And here is where the structural engineering gets truly mind-bending. In slide 8, we dive into the architecture of meaning, grammar, and structure.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
I had to read this slide 3 times because it completely breaks how an English speaker thinks about building a sentence. The slide explains they use an ergative absolutive structure, completely abandoning the standard subject-verb-object line.
Yeah, because in English, we use a rigid linear sequence, right? I throw the ball, the actor, the action, the target, separate words, just standing in a line.
Exactly. But slide 8 calls the Kaqchikel structure modular communication. The visual on the slide shows interlocking beaded blocks, literally like Lego bricks. I need to understand the mechanics of this. Am I basically snapping word chunks together?
That is the perfect way to visualize it. Think of the verb root as your main central Lego block. In Kaqchikel, you don't use separate free-floating pronouns like I or it.
Okay, so what do you do instead?
Instead, you take specific phonetic prefixes and suffixes, and you physically snap them onto that central verb root. One prefix indicates exactly who is doing the action, another indicates who is receiving it, and another indicates the tense.
Wait, so instead of lining up separate words, I lock all these prefixes onto the main verb, creating one single dense mega word.
Yes, exactly.
And that single block of sound communicates the entire action, the actor, and the target simultaneously.
Precisely. Because of that density, the language does not prioritize the rigid linear word order that English requires. It prioritizes the specific relationship between the actor and the action within that single phonetic block.
Wow.
It's a highly efficient, condensed, three-dimensional way of transferring complex information.
That is structural genius. But how does a dense three-dimensional mega word actually sound when spoken? In slide 9 phonetics, we get 3 key elements.
Right.
First, glottalized consonants. The slide features a diagram of a human throat. What is a glottalized consonant doing physically?
Well, it requires a sudden closure and rapid release of the glottis, your vocal cords, while simultaneously making a consonant sound.
Ouch, that sounds intense.
It creates this sharp, percussive, popping sound. It's a distinct catch in the throat that fundamentally distinguishes the Mayan language family from European languages.
Ah, I see. And the second element listed is vowel length, noting that changing the physical duration of a vowel completely alters the definition of the word.
Yes. A short clip versus a long drawl changes the meaning entirely. You have to be incredibly precise.
And the third element is nature's vocabulary. The presentation states that the vast majority of their daily words are derived directly from the agricultural environment. The physical landscape literally dictates the lexicon.
The environment isn't just where they live. It is the vocabulary they use to conceptualize the world.
Let's actually hear this vocabulary in action. Moving to slide 10, we have the Phrase Tapestry. It's a beautifully formatted translation chart. Let's look at the phonetics. For hello, the pronunciation guide gives us escaber.
Yeah, escaber. And good morning is sakari.
Sakari.
You can almost hear that crisp, percussive rhythm we just discussed.
You really can. And the presentation highlights one specific word in a bright green beaded border right in the center, multiox. Thank you.
Multiox.
The text notes that this is a universal anchor phrase across many different Maya communities, transcending local regional dialects.
Which makes perfect sense, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
In an agricultural society that depends entirely on community cooperation and, the unpredictable cycles of weather, gratitude is a foundational concept.
Oh, absolutely.
Multiox isn't just polite small talk. It's a vital acknowledgement of reciprocal relationships.
And if you are eating a meal made from that sacred maize, you would say delicious, which is uchik.
Uchik, exactly.
I love the mechanics of this language, but the presentation makes a hard pivot here, noting that spoken language is only half the equation when it comes to preserving a culture.
Yeah, because language trains the mind, but the other primary vehicle for cultural transmission actually trains the body.
Let's look at that physical training. In slide 11, we explore community values through play. The slide explicitly states that traditional games are not simple recess activities to burn off energy.
No, not at all.
They're complex tools designed to build the physical and mental endurance required for highland farming.
We have to recall the geography we saw back on slide 3. The Central Highlands are these rugged, high-altitude environments.
Right.
Cultivating maize on steep inclines requires immense cardiovascular capacity, joint stability, and just pure mental grit. You cannot build that capacity just by talking about it.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of these activities. In slide 12, we have a traditional games comparison matrix. Let's analyze the first one. Pelota Maya.
The famous ball game.
Yeah, this is the ancient pre-Hispanic game where players must keep a heavy, solid rubber ball in motion using exclusively their hips. Now, I have always read that this had deep cosmic ritual significance representing the movement of celestial bodies.
It did, yes.
But practically speaking, how does bouncing a heavy rubber ball with your hips translate to agricultural endurance?
You have to look at the biomechanics involved.
Okay.
The sheer explosive power required to launch a solid, heavy rubber ball using only your core, glutes, and hips is immense.
I bet.
And highland agriculture planting deep into the soil, harvesting and carrying incredibly heavy loads of maize up steep mountainous paths that relies entirely on a strong kinetic chain transferring power from the legs through the hips to the back.
Wow, okay.
So Pelota Maya is essentially high-level functional strength training, just cleverly disguised as a cosmic ritual.
So it's like the ancestral equivalent of elite cross-training that completely shifts how I understand it. The next game on the Matrix is Tlalkopois.
Yes, that's a fascinating one.
This is a strategy game played using small stones and pits in the ground. The Matrix notes it develops counting skills for agricultural cycles. But isn't it just a basic arithmetic game?
It goes far deeper than basic counting. Highland farming is highly mathematical. Yeah, a successful harvest requires calculating complex seasonal shifts, tracking lunar phases for planting, and managing precise resource yields. Tlalkopois actually teaches young people algorithmic thinking and predictive strategy.
So they're planning ahead.
Exactly. You are moving stones to anticipate future resource distribution and counter unexpected variables. It is basically an agricultural simulation board game.
You are modeling the harvest before you ever touch a seed. That is brilliant.
It really is.
The final game on the Matrix is Cinta, an equestrian game where riders pull small ribbons from a tall pole. The Matrix notes this is a blended colonial game meant for celebratory fiestas. So the Spanish introduce horses, and the Kaqchikel immediately integrate them into their own community traditions.
Yes, it's another perfect example of that active architectural integration we saw with their spiritual syncretism. They take a newly introduced foreign tool, the horse, and a foreign equestrian activity, and immediately weave it into their own communal fabric to celebrate their own milestones.
They absorb the new without losing the old.
Yeah.
But let's fast forward to the ultimate modern challenge. How does this intricate, hyper-localized system survive globalization? In slide 13, Economics and Connectivity, we get a stark reality check.
We do, yeah.
The visual shows a brightly colored quetzal bird representing Guatemala's national currency, the GTQ. It emphasizes that the Kaqchikel are absolutely not isolated hermits. They are deeply embedded, active participants in the modern global economy.
And this is a critical point that dismantles a lot of outside bias. There's this deeply flawed paternalistic assumption that indigenous cultures must be completely shielded from modern markets in order to remain, quote-unquote, authentic.
Right, like they have to stay frozen in time.
Exactly. And the Kaqchikel completely defy that logic. They export agricultural goods globally, they engage in international textile markets, and they utilize modern digital connectivity daily.
But my question is, how do you participate in a global capitalist economy without your culture being entirely commodified? You mentioned earlier that their textiles are wearable passports. How do you sell a traditional weaving to a tourist without selling your visual sovereignty?
By maintaining incredibly strict internal boundaries.
Okay, what does that look like?
The textiles they weave specifically for the global market or the tourist trade are entirely different in their symbolic weight and grammatical syntax from the garments woven for internal community identification.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, they navigate the modern economy utilizing the Quetzal, they use modern supply chains to export their goods, but they draw an absolute hard line distinguishing what is commerce from what is sacred. They participate globally, but they govern themselves locally.
Which brings us to the definitive proof of that success. Moving to slide 14, preservation, the data presented is undeniable. We see hundreds of thousands of active voices speaking Quechua Maminen daily.
It's amazing.
We see widespread, highly organized youth engagement in cultural workshops, actively teaching the complex language structures and the biomechanics of those traditional games. And we see robust institutional support recognizing them as a vital pillar of the modern state. This culture is not fading into an echo, it is roaring.
It's a testament to the power of deliberate preservation. They don't just hope the culture survives, they actively construct the workshops, the markets, and the linguistic tools to guarantee it.
And that leads us to the grand finale. In slide 15, the Unbroken Thread, we see the fully realized macroscopic beaded tapestry from the very beginning. A core takeaway here is explicit. The Kaqchikel culture is not a relic in a museum.
Definitely not.
Through their highly modular Lego brick language, their rigorous, biomechanically brilliant games, and their seamlessly integrated spiritual beliefs, they actively weave a living identity every single day.
And the operative word there is actively. Culture is not something that passively happens to them. It is a daily, deliberate practice of taking the threads of their profound history and intentionally deciding how to weave them into tomorrow.
It is a masterclass in resilience. And frankly, it leaves us with a fascinating, challenging question to consider for ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
If you were stripped of your national flag and your modern passport, what local symbols, what specific family idioms, or what deeply rooted community traditions would you wear to show the world exactly who you are and where you come from?
It really forces you to critically examine the threads you're choosing to maintain in your own life.
It really does. Thank you so much to everyone listening for exploring this phenomenal tapestry with us.
Thank you for watching until the end. We will continue to bring you many more languages from around the world. Please subscribe to our channel. See you next time on the Linglobe channel.